On December 16 and 17, thousands of employees of state-run banks from across India took to the streets, and not for the first time this year. Reason? A strike against the government's intention of tabling the Banking Laws Amendment Bill, also termed as the Bank Privatisation Bill, in the 2021-2022 budget. This was not the first such protest in the recent times, and by the looks of it, it is unlikely to be the last. Right below our office, the 6-mile branch of the State Bank of India also put up posters against the government move and remained shut for 2 days. But why are bank employees so angry at the proposed amendments, and what will be the implications for the Northeast region, which continues to have the least number of banks in the entire country? I am Rifa Deka, and in this episode of Decoded, we look at the bank privatization and what implications it could have on the Northeast.
Pursuing for months.
The village of Assam
in the 75th Independence Day.
Whenever we hear the word privatization, we are reminded of protests by unions mostly belonging to the left and calls for hartals. But in the case of banks, it is not just left unions, rather bank employees cutting across ideologies that are up in arms, alleging that the bill intends to privatize 2 public sector banks and 1 general insurance company as per the centre's disinvestment plan. United Forums of Bank Unions, that called the strike on December 16 and 17, is an umbrella body of 9 unions, including All India Bank Employees Association and the National Organization of Bank Workers, among others. As per the Public Sector Enterprise Policy for Atmanirbhar Bharat, Niti Aayog has been entrusted with the task of suggesting public sector banks that will undergo the merger. But why did the government consider the proposal? Earlier this year, the government said the years-long capital injections and reforms were not able to bring in significant changes in public sector units or PSUs. The PSUs have a higher level of non-performing assets, also known as NPAs, and stressed assets in comparison to private banks, and lack profitability, market capitalization, and dividend payment control. Now, if you are wondering what NPAs are, well, NPAs are assets that do not perform well. That is, if in India a person takes loan on interest and fails to return the interest or even the principal amount of the loan, then after 90 days it becomes a non-performing asset. In 2019, in an attempt to consolidate banks into mega banks, the government merged 10 public sector banks into 4. With these mega bank mergers, the number of PSBs was consolidated from 27 banks in 2017 to 12 banks in 2020. Many see this as the first attempt at purging public sector banks before handing them over to private parties. According to experts, public sector banks are one of the largest employers in the world. As it proliferates into many branches, it creates more job opportunities, which, if privatized, will be completely opposite. We spoke to Priyadarshini, who is a senior research associate for the Center for Financial Accountability. This is what she had to say.
Definitely there will be job loss. And even with the mergers that happen, they said that there's not going to be any retrenchment of employees. But before the merger happened, many were asked to voluntarily retire. So then it does not count into retrenchment, but it is like they took VRS. So and after the mergers, like you see that close to 20,000 branches have been closed just in last year. Like once the bank merges, and many of these bank branches kind of shut down. And that is one thing that is going to directly impact people. So when they will not have the branch that was closer to their house, or like they had that easy access to banks.
But the case is different in private sectors. Since they are not accountable to anybody, they can further engage in speculative and risky activities, which brings a threat to the hard-earned money of the public. Also, the PSUs can never go bankrupt as it has the backup of the government. But private banks might go bankrupt and all our money goes missing forever. Also, the minimum balance deposits would be higher for private banks. To say the least, we must be required to put rupees 10,000 as our minimum balance. The general notion is that people's money in public sector banks is safer in comparison to private banks because their actions are accountable to public agencies like Comptroller, Auditor General, Central Vigilance Commission and the Central Bureau of Investigation. PSBs do not engage in risky and speculative activities. Meanwhile, in the case of private banks, branches in rural areas would close down or the transaction fees might skyrocket as private banks look for short-term profits and cater to the only richer sections in urban or metro areas. Priyadarshini explained more on this.
The interest of the private banks is not to cater to the people, it is to make profit. And so areas that do not have profit, or they are not seen as that would increase their profit, they will not be making those investments. Public sector banks, like per employee, so a bank like SBI caters to over 1,000 people, but that ratio is very skewed when it comes to private. Per employee maximum you have 470 or 500 people is what a HDFC bank caters to.
Now, if we bring Northeast in this scenario, where so-called prioritized segmented developments were playing hide and seek for a long time, how would this move bring about drastic negative consequences? This is what Mr. Ananta Kalita, the former director on the Central Board of SBI, and Priyadarshini had to say.
যদি হেৰি হয় ব্যক্তিগতকৰণ হয় বা বহুত শাখা বন্ধ হৈ যাব, কাৰণ প্ৰাইভেট বেংকৰ কি লাভ হ'বই লাগিব তেওঁলোকৰ। গতিকে এই অঞ্চলবিলাকত, যেনে পাহাৰত আজি অৰুণাচল প্ৰদেশত আছে, নাগালেণ্ডৰ ভিতৰত আছে, মণিপুৰৰ ভিতৰত আছে, আমাৰ অসমৰ বহুত গাঁৱৰ শাখাবিলাক আছে। গতিকে এই শাখাবিলাক মোৰ মানে সন্দেহ আছে যে ব্যক্তিগত খণ্ডৰ বেংকে এই শাখাবিলাক তেওঁলোকে খুলি ৰাখিব। পাব্লিক ছেক্টৰ বেংকক বদনাম দিয়ে, কিন্তু পাব্লিক ছেক্টৰ বেংকত মানে যথেষ্ট ইণ্টাৰফেয়াৰ কৰে, অমুকক লোন দিয়ক, অমুকক লোন দিয়ক, তাৰপিছত হেৰি নকৰে। কিন্তু প্ৰাইভেট ছেক্টৰত সেইটো ইণ্টাৰফেয়াৰ কৰিব নোৱাৰে, আৰু সেইবিলাক লোন দিয়াৰ কাৰণে বেছি NPA হয়।
So from 2012 we had this is for the northeastern region, which had 2,556 banks, and in 2019 it was 3,916. So that is the growth that is there. But whereas in many other regions, the only region that has in thousands is northeastern region. Everywhere else it is over 10,000, or at least 10,000, 20,000. So that is the kind of disparity that we see even now. So then with privatization, definitely it's going to be a different case altogether.
What we saw on December 16 and 17 was not the only protest carried out by bankers. A similar protest had also taken place on November 30 under the banner Bank Bachao, Desh Bachao. The bankers also warned on intensifying the protest if the government happens to table the bill in 2021-22 budget session. With both protesters and the government firm on their stance, it remains to be seen who blinks first come 2022. Either way, it would be prudent for investors and bank account holders to keep a close eye on any and every development.
Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to EastMojo. For any queries, put them down in the comments section below and press on the bell icon for notifications.